Hello Canadians, my name is Yousef Hanna and I've prepared this video for you and for Canada. Every year on July 1st we celebrate the birth of our great nation, and this is how I've decided to share it with you guys. One of the things I've realized about the foreign perception of Canada is that a lot of people don't realize that there is such thing as Canadian culture or Canadianness. Many people believe that we're simply an extension of American culture, or on the flip side, just an extension of British and or French culture. But the more I live and breathe this country, the more I realize that's not true. I am a Canadian, and I'm not British, and I'm definitely not American. Canada's not a melting pot like the United States, neither does it have a long and storied history like many of our ancestral nations. But you can see the difference between Canada and even the United States, another land of immigration, just by looking at what our governments are meant to do. In the United States Declaration of Independence, the purpose of the government is to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whereas in Canada, it's peace, order, and good government. So what is it that brings Canadians together? What do all Canadians share? Over the last few weeks, I've been interviewing politicians and public servants and asking them the same question: what do you think it means to be Canadian? And here, for your viewing pleasure, are some of their responses.
What it means to be Canadian, I believe, is quite different than what it means to be American. The American War of Independence, the fact that you have this mythology built around the great struggle to define Americanhood and the independent American against the tyranny of the British. In Canada, I think that being Canadian for different people means not being American. For some of us, it is closely tied to where we grew up. It could be regionalism. In Ontario, because you're from Toronto, you have a sense of everyone who is Canadian has an urban experience. But more importantly, I think that what it means to be Canadian is that there's more than one way of being Canadian, that there is a pluralistic view of Canada as opposed to a singular reality, and that as Canadians we accept that each of the realities have equal value, and that's what makes Canada great, the fact that accepting other people's perspectives of what it means to be Canadian and not asking questions like, are you really Canadian? Where were you born? How long have you been here? And that is a testament to being more accepting, much more understanding, and the focus, I think, is in the 21st century for Canadians to maintain that sense of social justice and pride in accepting, not tolerating, but understanding the value of all the peoples that have made Canada great.
I came to Canada when I was 18 from the north of England, dirty industrial north of England, and I was absolutely blown away and amazed by the beauty of Canada, the openness of its land, the trees, the forests and the trees that dotted this land from sea to sea to sea. I've had the opportunity to travel a lot of Canada and see most of it from the east coast to the west coast, and from Nunavut to its long border with our great neighbor to the south. And to be a Canadian makes me feel free, makes me feel special, that I get to share the cultures of people from around the world who are welcomed here to our country. And I enjoy watching the generations, the people who come to this country and make their way, and they have their children, and their children are Canadian and have a freedom and an openness that in a lot of cases the parents and the family never had in their home country. Canada is a very special place. It's a place where everyone is welcome, everyone can make a home, and everyone's children can have an amazing future. I love Canada. I'm proud to be a Canadian.
I think to be a Canadian is to believe in the value system, the universality of being human, is to recognize that what really binds us is our shared humanity, and to focus on the things that connect us as people, our shared aspirations, our joint dreams, because they don't change. It doesn't matter whether you're a new Canadian, old Canadian, long-time Canadian. It doesn't matter whether you've been here for 3 months or for generations. What I find is we all want the same things. A good opportunity for ourselves, good opportunity for our children, and it is this value system of equal opportunity for all of us, and a land that respects our human rights. I think that's what defines being a Canadian.
I think Canada is the land of equal opportunity. I think in Canada, everyone has the same opportunity to succeed as everyone else. I know that most people are immigrants here. My family are immigrants from Poland, and we all came here for the same reason. We wanted a better life for our children. Not always easiest for ourselves of our generation, but we wanted a better life for our children. And we knew that if we came to Canada, it was the land of opportunity, that with a bit of ingenuity and hard work, anyone and everyone could succeed. I think Canada is a beacon. It's a beacon to people all over the world. It's a place where people can live, pray, and work together in peace, tolerance, respect, and in harmony.
You know, I'm very fortunate to be a product of immigration to this great country. You know, my father came to Canada in 1953. He landed at Pier 21 in Halifax, like many who came off the boat in those years. And he had a saying back then. He says, there's room for everyone. Room for everyone to compete and do business. There's room for everyone to learn, and he was talking about young people. And more importantly, he would say, there's room for everyone to help each other. Because that is what, in the end, will make us even much more compassionate, much more prosperous, much more productive as a society. He left a fascist post-war regime that limited their ability to find freedom. He chose Canada. He said in Canada he was able to breathe because freedom was apparent. And more importantly, they help one another. And that's what we are as Canadians. So I'm very fortunate to live in this province. I'm very grateful that my father chose Canada.
I think a Canadian is a very fortunate person to be able to live in a country that we have so much tolerance, so much freedom, and I mean freedom of speech, freedom to travel, freedom to do the things that you really want to do in life. And we're able to do this without fear of repercussion or anything happening that would be against your social fabric. To me, we're able to do this because we embrace our diversity, our different cultures in this country. And that's been happening for hundreds of years. And we're at the point that in a country like Canada, we're able to live with each other. Yes, there's always differences of opinion, whatever, but we, at the same time, we learn to embrace the differences, and we're able to absorb the cultures. We're able to also, by the way, recognize that there is so much happiness by being in an environment where we can all work together peacefully. And I think that's one of the things that people on the outside world recognize about Canada. We sometimes don't see that as Canadian citizens or Canadians living here, but at the same time, we're very, very fortunate that in Canada we have all these abilities to be able to have such a great country.
I think it means to be Canadian to respect other people and to care about this country and to want to embrace the values of peace and of understanding, love thy neighbor, so to speak. I think that's a true fundamental value of what it is to be Canadian, that we embrace people from all over the world that want to come and make Canada their home, as well as those like me that were born here, that want to make this a great country, want to work with other people and do the best that we really can. I think that's a core fundamental principle about being Canadian.
To me, a Canadian is a very free and peaceful person.
Alright, these 3 next videos I took while I was at a barbecue in Thornhill, and I accidentally bumped into the Member of Parliament for Thornhill and the Minister of the Environment, Peter Kent, the Member of Provincial Parliament for Thornhill, Peter Sherman, and York Regional Police Constable, Tony Sodrona.
What does it mean to be Canadian? Well, as a naturalized Canadian myself, it's very important to be a Canadian, simply because I was born in England during the Second World War. My parents were both in the Canadian Forces. But nonetheless, when I moved back to Canada, I came through Pier 21. And I share that experience every time I'm in Halifax and I go down to Pier 21, which is, of course, most arriving new Canadians today come by air. But it's the spiritual connection of what Pier 21 represents in terms of welcoming people to build a better country, and sort of the diversity of the country, people from countries around the world, all over. The fact that we all live here in spectacular harmony compared to some countries where some of our different groups might be at odds with one another. So yeah, no, it's what it means to me every Canada Day is the celebration of the fact that we come together from so many countries of origin and we live so well together, second generation, third generation. Groups don't think of themselves as ethnic Canadians, they think of themselves just as Canadians. I think that's the great success of Canada.
I think it means that you're a citizen of the greatest, most open country in the world, that notwithstanding its high taxes, and notwithstanding its very nasty winters, it's the only place in the world that I would ever consider living, and I've traveled the entire world. The nicest thing about Canada is that you can walk into any room, you can have any collection of Canadians from any background whatsoever, and you can ask the question, who here looks like a Canadian? And the answer is always, everybody looks like a Canadian. That's the other wonderful thing about Canada, that we are so welcoming that we never judge. I learned something probably 20 years ago, and I'm in my 60s. Maybe it's more than 20 years ago. I learned to stop seeing color, and I learned to stop seeing racial features, mainly because we're surrounded by multiple colors and multiple faces in our society. And I learned it because that was my everyday. That was going on the subway, walking downtown, wherever I happened to be. And because I learned it, it became sort of part of my DNA. And I love just being out and about and talking to people, always knowing that everybody's on an equal footing.
Like you're saying, it's a big question. I think it's what you see out here today. I think it's community. I think it's part of what we do as police officers in New York Region. It's working with our community partners, trying to, improve on already a great country and make sure everyone has a place in it and has a voice in it and feels included in it. And I think we're seeing that here today at the barbecue, which is you got all kinds of different people from different backgrounds, speaking different languages. We're all out here enjoying the beautiful day, the barbecue, and just enjoying being in Canada and being Canadians. And listen, with everything that's going on around the world, I think we need to take stock of the fact that where we are and the opportunities and the blessings we have in this country, which I think is really easy to overlook sometimes when we get caught up in our daily grind. And it's easy to lose perspective of the fact that we live in a place where we're safe, you can work, you can provide for your family, you can have a future, and ideally a brighter future for your kids. Because I know for my parents that immigrated here, that was their goal, to do better than what they had back in the old country. So I think this country provides that opportunity if you want to take it.
So I guess Canadianness isn't necessarily a single thing or idea, but it definitely isn't Americanness or Britishness. Compassion, plurality, diversity, they all bring us together, but not a single one of these answers defines us as a nation. We as a country are Canadians, and that says more about us than a single adjective. One of the greatest things about Canada is the pluralism we have, and not just in ethnicity or religion, but in thought and idea. People aren't ostracized for thinking differently. In fact, thinking differently is encouraged. While I was doing these interviews, I was asking myself the same question: what does it mean to be Canadian? And I was hoping that while conducting these interviews, a single elegant answer would just pop out from the void. But that boils it down too simply. Canadianness isn't a single idea or thing that you can construct and say, this is it. Canadianness is the fact that we can all be different and yet all share in that name. I guess what I'm trying to say is the humanity that unites us is stronger and more powerful than anything that can divide us.